You know, we're back at it. Exodus 29. So believe it or not, we're only 11 chapters out from this chapter, from the book of Exodus being done. um, the last one we read, the Holy Apparel. Very, 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 really, like one of those. It's an instructional. If this is part of the history, that is part of the instructions as to what they were supposed to do. So even when the priesthood is later on, I would assume in full power, that's what the I don't know, like is it called the head priest? But you know who I'm talking about, right? Like the top priest. You know what I mean? Like that person. Um um I'm sure that they always had that same apparel. And mind you, the sons of Aaron, they wear what they wear. I don't know if they continue that tradition or if they, like if priest had a whole bunch of sons, if they made a bunch of the outfits for their sons, or if they just chose the most righteous of their sons, or maybe because they're, I don't know, because like the priesthood goes down. You could argue that they do more wickedness than any of the other tribes, like because they're able to do the most damage. You see. Um, Having said that, though, I won't placate the princes and the chiefs and the kings of the people, their elders and their judges. I'm not going to placate them by saying that. And I've jabbered on for a while, but this chapter, if I'm not mistaken, uh, it's a little long, but it's really about food. It's really more or less about cooking, so there's not as much to elaborate. Here we go. First one. And these are the things which thou shalt do to them. And this is, like I said, this is proper preparation. And thou shalt sanctify them, so that they shall serve me in the priesthood. And he's talking about the priest. And thou shalt take one young calf from the herd, and two unblemished rams. So these are perfectly, there's nothing wrong with them. And unleavened loaves kneaded with oil, and unleavened cakes anointed with oil. Thou shalt make them of fine flour of wheat. Stop right there. So we have an instance right now where it's telling us we need a young calf, two unblemished rams. We need unleavened loaves kneaded with oil, so they were mixed with oil, right? So I don't know if they have any water in them, if they're not just all oil. Um, having said that, because that's my understanding. I'm like, you could totally need you don't need, yeah, if you just added oil to the flour, you could make the bread. You could make bread just like that, and it would be really delicious. I would assume if you do it right. And this has no yeast, nothing that's gonna make the bread poof up and blow up. No leaving. And unleavened cakes anointed with oil. So when it says anointed with oil, I'm gonna assume what's that word? Like brushed. You know what I'm talking about? Like drizzled. There we go, drizzled. You know how like you pour like a syrup on a pancake or something like that? That's what I'm assuming they want the oil done for the cakes. The cakes are also unleavened. And they're gonna be made of fine flour. Now that's the part right there. I had a disagreement with the understanding of what fine flour is in the scripture. See, I had a gentleman tell me that it's gluten free flour, and I just couldn't disagree more. I just thought it was like, I think it's just fine flour, like it says, like, because there's crude flour. See, and people who've never done anything like that, and they just, I no offense, they don't know anything, right on, because they say stuff like that and they sound hella uninformed. Because it's like, do you know how they process flour? Right. Because you would know that it's a process where, the reason why you have to thresh the wheat, you have to separate it first, okay? And now you're talking about a grinding process, right? You can cook the flour after it's been, what's the word we're looking for, y'all? Um, like a mortar bowl, right? Like let me just show y'all. I have one. Like this, right? You know what I'm saying? So the fine flour is something that's obviously made like that. Like, I just don't see how I could totally understand the brother's desire to be healthy, but I'm like, the term gluten is highly deceptive, because when they say that, I'm like, well, that's the substance that holds the flour together, that makes it stick. So it's like, for it to be gluten free, it's technically flour that doesn't hold. I'm like, that, I don't understand. But anyway, and that's just me throwing that out there. Let's go forth. Verse, what verse are we at, y'all? Verse 3. And thou shalt put them in one basket, and thou shalt offer them on the basket, and the young calf, and the 2 rams. And thou shalt bring Aaron and his sons to the doors of the tabernacle of testimony, and thou shalt wash them with water. And having taken the garments, thou shalt put on Aaron thy brother the full-length robe, and the ephod, and the oracle. And thou shalt join him for the oracle to the ephod. And thou shalt put the entire mitre, and thou shalt put the mitre on his head. So you're gonna take the oracle, put it on the ephod, and like he has one in one hand, because I'm not sure if he has a stave or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure his hands are full. He's holding so he's gonna join the ephod to the oracle for him. So he's gonna put it together for Aaron, because he's gonna be dressed up. I don't know if Aaron himself is gonna carry it, or he's gonna have, I don't know. But let me just keep reading. And then he's gonna put the mitre on his head, so that way it looks right. Because right, he's gonna be wearing this clothes. He's not gonna have full reach. Let's just keep reading. Where we at? And thou shalt take of the anointing oil, verse 7, and thou shalt pour it on his head, and shalt anoint him. And thou shalt bring his sons, and put garments on them. And thou shalt gird them with the girdles, and put the tires upon them. And they shall have a priestly office to me forever. This is what was supposed to happen, y'all. And thou shalt fill the hands of Aaron, and the hands of his sons. And thou shalt bring the calf to the door of the tabernacle of witness. And Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the calf before the Lord, by the doors of the tabernacle of witness. And thou shalt slay the calf before the Lord by the doors of the tabernacle of witness. So did you hear how he had to keep repeating himself, like by the doors of the tabernacle? He's like, look, do it right here. Don't do what you want to do. That's the reason for the repetition. And also so that way it's clearly understood. Where we at? Verse 12. And thou shalt take of the blood of the calf and put it on the horns of the altar with thy finger. Remember that table that has the four horns on it? But all the rest of the blood thou shalt pour at the foot of the altar. And thou shalt take the fat that is on the belly, and on the lobe of the liver, and the two kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, and thou shalt put them upon the altar. But the flesh of the calf, and his skin, and his dung, thou shalt burn with fire without the camp. For this is an offering on account of sin. And thou shalt take one ram. And Aaron, so listen right there. First off, note that it tells us exactly where the fat is going to be at, or where you're going to find it. The fat that's on the belly, the lobe of the liver, the two kidneys, the fat that is upon them in this area, right? You're going to put that upon the altar, right? And then it's saying, but the flesh of the calf, so the meat, his skin, and his dung, so this is going to be the waste that would be produced or going to be produced because his innards are going to be obviously there. So you see what I'm saying? Do you see how the scripture's telling us what's taking place and how it's going to look like and all these things like, well, and it's just, so here's the thing. Assuming that Moses didn't do sacrifice in Egypt because the Egyptians didn't believe in eating red meat, he would have to give this man instruction as to how to properly prepare these animals the right way, despite what people think, and tell him exactly what he wants. And this is a sin offering. Okay, this is a sin offering. Verse 15, and thou shalt take one ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and thou shalt kill it, and take the blood and pour it on the altar round about. And thou shalt divide the ram by his several limbs, and thou shalt wash the inward parts and the feet with water, and thou shalt put them on the divided parts with the head. And thou shalt offer the whole ram on the altar, a whole burnt offering to the Lord, for a sweet smelling savor. It is an offering of incense to the Lord. And thou shalt take the second ram. So you listen to that one right there. Is the first one is a sin offering, and there's no sweet savor. It's just going to be burnt. So the skin, the flesh, and the dung are all going to get burnt together, and that's a sin offering, right? And in this one, he's saying, no, you're going to take all the inner parts out of it, right? You're going to wash it, and you're going to bring it back together, and then you're going to cook it so I can smell it cook. Purity of flesh. Okay, here we go. And it is an offering of incense. It's an incense offering to the Most High. Cooking an animal. Come on. For a sweet smelling savor. It is an offering of incense to the Lord. And thou shalt take the second ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and thou shalt kill it. So that way the animals don't freak out. This is why you guys are like, why are they holding their hands on the heads of the animals? So that way the animals can't get away. They gotta take this one for the team, homie. Sorry. Yes, that's the idea. And thou shalt take the second ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and thou shalt kill it, and take the blood of it, and put it on the tip of Aaron's right ear, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the great toe of his right foot, and on the tips of his right ears of his sons, and on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the great toes of their right feet. And thou shalt take of the blood from the altar and of the anointing oil, and thou shalt sprinkle it upon Aaron and on his garments, and on his sons, and on his sons' garments. Excuse me. And he shall be sanctified, and his apparel, and his sons' apparel. But the blood of the ram thou shalt pour round about upon the altar. And thou shalt take from the ram its fat, both the fat that covers the belly, and the lobe of the liver, and 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, and the right shoulder. For this is a consecration. And by the word consecration, it has accomplishment. And one cake, verse 23, and one cake made with oil, and one cake from the basket of unleavened bread set forth before the Lord. And thou shalt put them all on the hands, of Aaron and on the hands of his sons. And thou shalt separate them as an offering before the Lord. And thou shalt take them from their hands, and shalt offer them up on the altar of whole burnt offering for a sweet smelling savor before the Lord. It is an offering to the Lord. And thou shalt take the breast from the ram of consecration, which is Aaron's, and thou shalt separate it as a separate offering before the Lord. And it shall be to thee for a portion. Oh, this is what you're going to eat. That's too funny. Now listen, do you hear how they're going to take the bread, one piece each, and they're going to throw it up there? They're going to hold it, and then they're going to put it up on the altar to have it burnt, so that way he can smell it too, right? Understand, I cannot stress enough, the Most High God has taste. And it also reminds me of the blood and the this is my take this bread, it's like my flesh type situation. It almost reminds me of that, you know, um, um, as to like a proper sacrifice. And that might be one of the reasons why, the Messiah or Jesus guy actually brought that out. I can't verify that. Don't get giddy. I can't verify that, but that's just a thought. Because all this whole story is all connected. Is it not? It's all a historical account, right? Or we were just at the portion part. Verse 27, and thou shalt sanctify the separated breast, and the shoulder of removal which has been separated, and which has been removed from the ram of consecration, of the portion of Aaron, and that of his sons. And it shall be a perpetual statute of the children of Israel to Aaron and his sons, for this is a separate offering. And it shall be a special offering from the children of Israel, from the peace offerings of the children of Israel, a special offering to the Lord. And the apparel of the sanctuary which is Aaron's shall be his sons after him, for them to be anointed in them and to fill their hands. And the priest his successor from among his sons, who shall go into the tabernacle of witness to minister in the holies, shall put them on 7 days. And thou shalt take the ram of consecration, and thou shalt boil the flesh in the holy place. And Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram, and the loaves in the basket by the doors of the tabernacle of witness. They shall eat the offerings with which they were sanctified to fill their hands, to sanctify them. And a stranger shall not eat of them, for they are holy. And if aught be left of the flesh of the sacrifice of consecration and loaves until the morning, thou shalt burn the remainder with fire. It shall not be eaten, for it is a holy thing. And thus shalt thou do for Aaron and for his sons, according to all things that I have commanded thee. 7 days shalt thou fill their hands. And thou shalt sacrifice the calf of the sin offering on the day of purification. And thou shalt purify the altar when thou dost perform consecration upon it, or sanctify consecration upon it. And thou shalt anoint it so as to sanctify it. 7 days shalt thou purify the altar and sanctify it. And the altar shall be most holy. Everyone that touches the altar shall be hallowed. And these are the offerings with which thou shalt offer upon the altar: 2 unblemished lambs of a year old daily on the altar continually, a constant offering. 1 lamb thou shalt offer in the morning, and the second lamb thou shalt offer in the evening. A tenth measure of the flour. Stop right here. Stop right here. So this is the one thing that people have to recognize. Everybody's not getting in on this. Right on? Word? They're not sacrificing 1 lamb per person. That's just 1 lamb. So however many, it's just the priest really can. The thou has waxed fat will kick into your minds later if we get to it. If there's so much time left on this planet that we make it that far. Oh, you are going to giggle. That's right. Because you're going to be like, dang, it's talking about those priests. It's not talking about just the regular Israelites. It's talking about the priests when it's normally, when the most criticism is coming out, is because the priest did more sinning than most of the people. They're responsible. They're the shepherds of the salvation of the people. Come on. It's their job. And they failed miserably. Having said that, you're not, the people, if they did not sin a whole bunch, they would not have been eating a whole bunch of meat. That's just the way it would have been. Only the priest would have had that privy circumstance. This is not exactly a right, it's a privilege. You know what I'm saying? And I'm assuming that if they were obviously unrighteous, it could be taken from them. So there's no way that it's just, oh, they deserve it. But here we go. Verse 39. 1 lamb shalt thou offer. We're just a few more verses and we're done. 1 lamb shalt thou offer in the morning, and the second lamb shalt thou offer in the evening. A tenth measure of fine flour mingled with the fourth part of a hin of beaten oil, and a drink offering, the fourth part of a hin of wine for the lamb. Stop right there. So you see how it's telling it. It's like, and a hin is like I don't know, like if it's a cup of like measurement, but it's obviously like a unit of measurement. It's saying, so you're going to take 1/10 of a measure, right, to a fourth part of a hin of beaten oil. So whatever a hin is, the tenth of the flour is clearly greater than a fourth of the oil. Does that make sense? Word? And that's how, and I'm assuming that this is how they're going to make the cakes and the bread. And he's telling them how to do it so that way they're not confused and they're not wasteful. You understand what I'm talking about? They're giving all this, all instructions. These are all instructions. He's teaching the people how to be a nation. So that way later on, it'll look right and it won't be all abominable. Anyway, here we go. Verse 41. And thou shalt offer the second lamb in the evening, after the manner of the morning, and according to the drink offering of the lamb, or to the lamb, to the morning lamb. Thou shalt offer it an offering to the Lord for a sweet smelling savor, a perpetual sacrifice throughout your generations, at the door of tabernacle of witness before the Lord, wherein I will be known to thee from thence, so as to speak to thee. And I will there give and I will there give orders to, and I will there give orders to the children of Israel. And I will be sanctified in my glory, and I will sanctify the tabernacle of testimony and the altar, and I will sanctify Aaron and his sons to minister as priests to me. And I will be called among the children of Israel, and will be their God. And by the word called, named among the children of Israel, and will be their God. And they shall know that I am the Lord their God, who brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, to be called or named upon them, to be named upon by them, and to be their God. Stop right there. You see how the and that's not all the sacrifice. That's just the beginning of the understanding of what it's saying. And you see how the Most High is clear. He's like, look, remove the fat, take all the fat out. You're going to cut the fat out. You're going to take out the kidneys, the liver, right? Um, and the stomach, okay? And you're going to boom, 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 right? You're going to get all that stuff out. And he's just this is a clear, it's clearly cooking. It's obviously cooking. So when people say that cooking isn't sacrifice, I'm like, clearly they're out of touch. You know what I'm saying? Like, once again, that makes people out of touch to just not know that cooking is sacrifice. Right. Does that make me wrong to say that they're out of touch? I don't know, but I know that they're out of touch. Man, I love y'all. This is like, y'all don't know. This is my favorite thing. This is my this. I do it by myself as much as possible because I respect my process as a professional. Whether people even see it as me being professional doesn't even matter, because I know that if I do it and there is a distraction or a disturbance that should otherwise not be, it's not normal to the setting, then that takes away sometimes. And sometimes it amplifies and it does make it better. So who knows? But I'm on the safe side of all these things, and I like to be cautious. Having said that, brothers and sisters, it has been fun. The spiritual gumbo of proper preparation. Spiritual gumbo out.